At exactly 8:01 a.m. on a Monday, an entire tech company froze. Every login denied, every firewall locked, every system dead. Executives screamed into phones. Engineers stared helplessly at blacked-out dashboards, and the CEO turned ghost white as one terrifying realization surfaced. They'd been shut out of their own empire. And the only person who could fix it was the man they fired for not smiling enough. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Evan Cole's silence wasn't passive. It was a blade, smooth, cold, and deliberate. When Josh Langston called him out in front of 70 employees, most of them junior, most of them too terrified or ambitious to blink, Evan didn't so much as shift in his seat. The call-out wasn't just about a smile. It was a warning shot dressed up as feedback. And Evan had seen enough corporate theater to recognize a ritual sacrifice when he was chosen for one. Josh had been at Zintra Dynamics for 8 months. A golden boy hire from a wellness startup with barely a back end, he moved like someone who believed charisma outranked competence. His first week, he renamed the Ops War Room to the Energy Hub and banned headphones on Mondays. He told it leads to nurture emotional transparency. When Evan refused to attend his Friday gratitude circles, Josh marked it as non-participation in cultural initiatives on his internal evaluation file. Evan found the entry months later, buried in a PDF audit trail. He read it once, closed the file, and got back to work. Zintra's CEO, Alan Dorsett, didn't care for friction. He liked results and calm. Josh delivered the illusion of both. Evan delivered the foundation. But foundations, by design, are hidden. Over 15 years, Evan had outlasted regimes, survived budget purges, rebuilt the same system 3 times under different branding. He didn't network. He didn't speak in all hands. He just kept the entire infrastructure running while others layered over it with dashboards and buzzwords. His code had touch points in security, finance, product, compliance, and nobody, not a single soul, ever asked how it was all still working. They just assumed. Josh, of course, didn't know what he didn't know. He was an air show of confidence, a gleaming shell. When he told HR he wanted Evan off-boarded, he framed it as a necessary culture refresh. Legacy code, legacy attitude, he joked. HR, desperate to look agile, complied. They drafted the package with robotic efficiency, standard NDAs, a 2-week grace period, a final paycheck that looked almost apologetic in its formatting. The day Evan was fired, he didn't protest. He didn't negotiate. He accepted the manila envelope with a nod, and then he did something that made the receptionist raise her eyebrows. He smiled. Not a big smile, not an angry smile, just enough to be noticed. And that was when the story truly began. The codebase was a cathedral, and Evan had laid every stone. While others postured in glass meeting rooms and wrote mission statements about digital agility, Evan was 3 directories deep, refactoring old authentication bridges written by developers long gone and forgotten. He never sought recognition. He sought control, not the kind flaunted in titles, but the type that lived in the bones of the system. Root level, kernel deep, irreversible unless you knew exactly where to look. Every update request, every system expansion over the last decade had passed through his hands. There was no formal gatekeeping policy when he joined, just chaos in the early days of a scrappy startup. Chaos that he quietly brought to order. Evan had centralized credentials, encrypted endpoints, created access hierarchies where there were none, and in the process, he authored the one thing no CTO ever thought to question: the root passphrase. It wasn't saved on any server. It wasn't documented in Confluence. It wasn't printed on some laminated card in the compliance officer's desk drawer. It was in his mind, 12 characters, 2 capital letters. No one else had it. No one even thought to ask. Over the years, new hires layered their work atop his, integrating flashy front-end dashboards and scalable microservices. None of them realized their systems were tethered to a logic core written and maintained in relative silence. Evan let them build, let them brag, because he knew something they didn't. The deeper the dependency chain, the more fragile the illusion of autonomy. Josh never bothered to understand how things worked. He saw uptime as default, not design. He assumed Evan's stoicism was disengagement, not discipline. To Josh, infrastructure was a checkbox, something to be managed with meetings and motivational slogans, not vigilance and precise command line syntax. Evan didn't correct him. He simply watched. After the termination, he logged in one final time under his elevated credentials. He navigated to the heartbeat controller, the access daemon logs, and the core vaults. Everything was intact, untouched, vulnerable. In under 3 minutes, he scheduled a cascading lockout script, time-stamped, obfuscated just enough to pass as a routine job. Execution. Monday, 0800 a.m. No one would notice it until it was too late. No alarms, no alerts, no flags in the audit log. Evan didn't raise his voice. He didn't leave a note. What he left behind was silence, weaponized. Not a detonation. A slow suffocation. And it had already begun. It started like any other Monday at Zintra Dynamics. Coffee in branded mugs, badge swipes through frosted glass doors, Slack greetings from HR bots pretending to be human. But at 8:01 a.m., the system hiccuped. Then it choked. The first wave came from customer support. Tickets flooding in, dozens per second. Clients couldn't log into their dashboards. Audit logs wouldn't load. Billing functions looped in error. No one panicked, yet. It was Zintra, after all. A hiccup meant some junior engineer misconfigured a gateway again. Then someone in finance realized they couldn't get into the vault system. Then security couldn't access the admin panel. Then IT attempted to override the admin lockout and discovered something that turned confusion into dread. They didn't have root access. Nobody did. Firewalls began cycling protective loops. The VPN re-authentication queue timed out and hard killed all remote sessions. By 8:17 a.m., the office was digitally blind. Password resets? Blocked. Multi-factor bypasses? Disabled. Even emergency boot-level commands returned a polite but final error. Access denied. The CTO, Marcus Chi, usually unflappable, was already drenched in nervous sweat, his keyboard tapping a frantic Morse code as he triangulated logs and server snapshots. His voice finally broke during the 10:12 a.m. war room call. "He owned us! Evan fucking owned us! We're locked out of our own system!" Josh Langston, sitting at the head of the glass conference table with his sleeves rolled up like a man pretending to work, blinked twice. "But I thought he left on good terms." Marcus didn't yell. He laughed, short, bitter, and sharp. "You fired the only person who could write the damn recovery protocol because he didn't smile enough." Josh turned pale. By 12:04 p.m., Zintra's largest client, a logistics giant using their infrastructure to track thousands of assets, threatened to sue. Class action chatter began by 1:30 p.m. At 3:07 p.m., the board convened an emergency session, and by 5:51 p.m., Josh broke and sent the message. "Can we talk? We're hoping you'll consult. Paid, of course." It was short, pathetic, sent from an iPhone. No apology, no ownership. Just desperation hidden behind politeness. Evan saw the preview from his lock screen. He didn't open it. Not yet. Because this wasn't about money. This wasn't about fixing a server. This was about memory. about being dismissed, not just from a job, but from relevance. This was what happened when you tried to erase someone whose fingerprints were still burned into the frame. Anger didn't roar, it simmered, and simmering things don't vanish, they boil. The boardroom was cold in that clinical, over-designed way that tried to signal modernity but reeked of desperation. Frosted glass, modular chairs, a synthetic ficus no one watered because it didn't need water, only approval. The same room Evan had been dismissed from 4 days earlier. The same room where Josh Langston smirked through a HR-approved ejection. But now, the tone had shifted. This was no longer a place of power. Evan entered at 9:02 a.m. on Tuesday, wearing a gray suit that fit with surgical precision. No laptop bag, no messenger, just a matte black flash drive pinched lightly between his fingers, like a scalpel. His presence wasn't loud, it was heavier than that. Everyone stood except Josh, who shot up half a second too late. "Evan, listen, Evan didn't look at him. He didn't break stride. His eyes moved over the room like a scanner. Legal, CTO, risk management, 2 board observers, faces washed in crisis fatigue, makeup flaking from stress, suits rumpled from overnight marathons of panic. He took the seat at the head of the table, Josh's seat. No one objected. Without a word, Evan opened the terminal from the wall-mounted system dashboard. The interface flickered, stalled for a moment, and then surrendered. He inserted the drive, typed 4 lines, pressed enter. The servers pulsed. The infrastructure coughed once, then resumed breathing. Screens along the wall lit up with green bars and status checks. A soft collective exhale moved through the room. The silence that followed wasn't relief. It was reverence, a forced stillness, like people watching something too precise to interrupt. Evan stood. He didn't close the terminal. He didn't remove the drive. He didn't log out. It didn't matter. His script would self-delete in 60 seconds. He turned to the room. "You told me it wasn't personal." His voice didn't rise. It didn't crack. "Now it is." That was it. He left without waiting for a reply, his heels echoing across polished concrete as the glass door clicked softly shut behind him. Josh opened his mouth. No one looked at him. No one said a word. Somewhere in the ceiling, the HVAC hummed a little louder. And somewhere in the code base, Evan's name, never officially recorded, remained embedded, like a fingerprint in the steel of a weapon long since fired. This wasn't revenge. It was closure, surgical, precise, absolute, satisfaction.